Okay, hi. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the sine rule and the cosine rule. We use these really for triangles which don't have right angles in them, so we can't use the standard sine, cos, and tan that you learnt in your GCSEs. Okay, so let's start off the sine rule. Now, the key thing with the sine rule and the cosine rule is that you need to label your triangle like this. So what you must have is when you have labeled this angle B, you must label the opposite side to be little b. Now we use capital letters for the angles and lowercase letters for the sides. So opposite angle capital A, we have side little a, and that's a crucial thing. So if you once you can label your triangle, you should just be able to substitute your things into the formula and it should all be nice and easy. Now the sine rule is written like this: sine A over A equals sine B over B equals sine C over C, or you can flip it all and have it as A over sine A equals B over sine B equals C over sine C. So as long as you've got your triangle labeled correctly, it's just a point of substitution. Okay, I just want you to note that if you were trying to find the angle, it would make sense to use it this way round with the angle on the top. And if you want to find a side, it would make sense to use it this way round with the side on the top. It doesn't make any difference. It just is saving you a little bit of rearranging. Now the sine rule, when you've done the cosine rule and the sine rule, you'll get given a triangle and you'll have to decide whether you're going to use the sine rule or the cosine rule. The key thing with the sine rule is that to make this work, you have to have either two angles or you're given one angle and then you're going to be finding the second angle, and that's the key difference. When we get to the cosine rule, you'll see that we're only dealing with one angle. Okay, so here's an example. We want to find x, that's side x, so here's our side x. Because we're trying to find a side, we want to use the sine rule like this. And now we're going to label our diagram. I suggest you actually label it properly. Just write it out on your triangle in the question. So you can do this any which way, it doesn't matter. The only thing which matters is that the angle A has to be opposite side A. So I'm going to choose to make my side X be my A's. So A equals X. So the opposite angle will be this 80. And just for simplicity, I'm going to use B. I could label it as C, it doesn't matter. And now I'm just going to substitute it into this bit of the equation, because I've got A's and B's. So I'm going to have A, which is X, over sine capital A, which is 80, equals B, which is 9, over capital B, which is 60, sine 60. So I get X sine 80 equals 9 over sine 60. I just multiply up by my 80, and then I just put it into my calculator. Now, with these questions, they do ask for a certain number of significant figures or decimal places. Just look at the question and try and remember to do whatever they ask. Okay, so this time we're going to find X, where X, big X, capital X, where X is the angle. Okay, so because again we're looking at angles, we want to use the formula this way round. I'm going to label it any which way I want, and because I'm looking at getting this big X, I'm going to use that as my A. So just getting a pen. There we go. So this is A equals X, and therefore the opposite side must be my little a. And then for simplicity again, I'm just going to make this B equals 94, and therefore B, little b equals 7. Okay, so now I've got everything I need. And again, I'm just going to substitute it in here. So that's going to give me sine of A, which is sine x, over little a, which is 4, equals sine of 94 over B, which is 7. Put it in my calculator, and I get the value for sine x after rearranging. Now I want to find x, so I use the sine to the -1 button, which gets the angle out of the sine. Now make sure that you use the answer button, so don't round it at this stage, don't round it right till the end, or else you might find you lose some accuracy to the end and you could end up losing a mark. So press the answer button on your calculator, and here I've got my answer is 38.8 to 1 decimal place. I should have a degree sign, shouldn't I? Okay, so let's before we move on to the cosine rule, we just want to consider this. Now, the sine rule is a bit tricky in that it does give you an ambiguous case. Sometimes, if you look at these two triangles, I've got two sides, one with 6, one with 4 in this first triangle, but also I've got one with 6 and one with 4 in this second triangle. And they've both got an angle of 40. So I could have potentially two answers, one which is obtuse and one which is acute. So you need to decide whether the angle could be obtuse from the context of the question or from the diagram. Mainly in C2 it's not an issue, but I just want you to be aware. The cosine rule does not have this same problem. Okay, so here's a cosine rule. Again, we want to make sure we label our triangle in a similar, well, exactly the same way as we had before, making sure that side A is opposite angle A. The cosine rule is normally given like this in a formula book, but you need to check with your syllabus. And you can see you can rearrange it to get cos A, or you could rearrange it to get B squared or C squared or any such thing. Now we use the cosine rule when we know two sides and an included angle. So there's only one angle we're interested in, there's only one angle we're either given or want to know, or we know three sides. It's worth noting that you can write it in any of these formats, and these are all the same because, as we said before, it doesn't matter which angle you label as A or B or C. What matters is that the side opposite angle A is also labeled as A. So sometimes it's handy to know that you can rewrite them like this. So just note, if we're looking at A squared here, we have the angle capital A there, and then the rest are not A, so that's B squared and C squared and BC. So for B squared, we would use the angle capital B, and then these wouldn't be B's. So they're A squared and C squared and A times C. And then for the C, you get using the angle C, and then these ones would be not the C's. You don't have to rearrange these, you can just relabel your diagram if you prefer. So here's an example. If you want to give this one a go, you can pause the slide and join us when you're ready. Now I would just note here we're trying to find B, and so I'm not going to bother relabeling it. I'm just going to use the cosine rule in this format. So it really now it's just a point of substitution. It's all labelled, everything's in the right place, the C's opposite the C's, the A's opposite the A's, the B's opposite the B's. So I want to find B squared, so I'm going to square A squared, which is 5 squared, C squared, which is 4 squared, minus 2 times A times C, 2 times 5 times 4, times cos 107. I'll put that in my calculator. And then you mustn't forget that you've got to take the square root, because I don't want B, I want B squared, I want B. And so I take the square root of this number from the answer. So don't write it down and round it. Make sure you put the answer to this in your calculator when you square root it. And here I've done to 3 significant figures. Again, do as you're told. Okay, I hope that was helpful. See you again soon.